Since America didn't go the route of other industrialized societies with taxpayer-funded public media, its media, owned by billionaires, now sided with either a military-industrial complex, fossil fuel-owned Republican Party oligarchy, or a military-industrial complex Wall Street-owned Democratic Party oligarchy. It refused to offer any journalism in support of the working class. It would appear that no one in America mainstream media had any inclination of the loss of the middle class or the vast amount of poverty facing America. It only focuses now on the minuscule differences of the two oligarch parties and their public branding, which is largely identity-based on women and minorities, both of which have majorities in the working class, yet working class issues are all but ignored. From the 60s to the turn of the century, music and film became more artistic. True artists speak to social and political issues of their time. They ushered in change with their outspoken art. Music was no longer just about dancing. It spoke of the injustices of war and society. Actors and musicians were not just voices through their art, but were often involved in the civic duty to make sure democracy was functioning in favor of the people as activists.
We've gone too far now to turn back.
Dr. King was determined to focus national attention on Selma, and he enlisted the help of supporters from New York to Hollywood.
The Reverend said, the white man can't cool it because he's never dug it.
Marlon Brando was the one that got me involved in civil rights, honestly. I was walking down the street and he just pulled up in the car and he said, how'd you like to go down to Selma? Yeah? I said, Selma, we're going to have a march from Selma to Montgomery. You want to come? And I said, sure.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some darker people or some poor, hungry people in the mud for big, powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality, raped and killed my mother and father. What, I'm going to shoot them for what? How can I go shoot them? Them little poor little black people, little babies and children and women. How can I shoot them poor people? I would just take me to jail.
Well, I'm saying you talking about me about some draft, and all of you white boys are breaking your neck to get to Switzerland and Canada and London. I'm not going to help nobody get something my Negroes don't have. If I'm going to die, I'll die now, right here fighting you. If I'm going to die, you my enemy. My enemy is the white people, not Viet Congs or Chinese or Japanese. You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
You got the message. I've been an actor all of my life. In fact, I have no conscious memory of ever not being an actor. But while acting is what I do for a living, activism is what I do to stay alive.
In the 80s, celebrities used their status for good to combat poverty at home with Farm Aid and abroad with Live Aid. In the New Deal, songs spoke of the economic times.
Sure, business is punk, and Wall Street is sunk. We're all of us broke, and ready to broke. We've nothing to dunk, can't even get drunk, and all the while they tell us to smile. Cheer up, gentle citizens, though you have no shirt. Happy days are here again. Cheer up, smile, nerds. All aboard prosperity. Giggle till it hurts. No more breadline charity. Cheer up, smile, nerds.
During the 60s, artists addressed the immorality of an unjust war.
And I dreamed I saw the bombers riding shotgun in the sky, and they were turning into butterflies above our nation.
Then large multinationals bought out many of the small and middle-sized record companies. The owners didn't care about art or a message, rather short-term profits that you get from catering to the lowest common denominator. Pop culture became pervasive, and both actors and musicians were now recruited for the ability to entertain the lowest common denominator, not for their artistic expression.
And the reality is that superficiality is in, and depth and quality is kind of out.
And we're like mentally killing, culturally killing the generation that's living now and going on by not giving them the kind of options that we had, of the kind of music that we could hear.
People tend to pick things that are immediately attractive as opposed to things that might grow on you. You wonder whether a Bob Dylan hit would have ever been a hit if it was focus grouped.
But it's like, well, we have these focus groups and we test out the music, and this is really what people want to hear. And I would email back or write back, hey, can I be at one of those focus group things once and just be a fly on the wall and watch them? And it was funny how every time I asked, oh, you know what, you just missed one. Darn it all. Because we'd love to, they didn't want me to, if they really had them, they didn't want my ass in there.
Has a focus on formula and quick returns caused the record industry to overlook talent and soul in favor of commodity? Is America missing out on some of its greatest musicians because they don't fit the model?
20 million people that buy a Britney Spears record aren't music fans, they're a popular culture fan. So if your vision is more about reaching the people that really respond to music, that's a completely different business than the majors are in now. The majors used to be in that business, but they weren't majors then. They were just record companies, and there were hundreds of them. But now there's 4 of them.
You look at the parameters now, and most of the people that people talk about as being great, Peter Gabriel or Sting or Bruce Springsteen, man, they wouldn't get a shot right now.
Most corporations run their financial lives based on quarterly earnings, and when that trickles down to a company that's developing talent, it puts a lot of constraints on the situation.
Companies were going public, and they were beholden to the bottom line of this quarter. Did you make a big profit this quarter? Otherwise, our stockholders would be unhappy. That's completely different than the record company that I signed with. Warner's was a little family label, and their big sellers, Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, would pay for Ry Cooder and Randy Newman and me and Little Feat,
Who's going to get signed are the ones that fit the existing formula, because they're the most likely to have a hit the quickest, the most immediately, and the most risk-free.
One of the things that worries me about the way people obsess over the stock market is that it now makes executives, whether in the music industry or otherwise, think short term, and a good executive shouldn't really have to do that. A good executive should be thinking about the long-term health of a business.
You either adapt to it or you get swallowed up. And now that I'm older, I see it. It's not so cut and dry as I used to like to think that it was.
Sadly, because our major record labels are now public companies, they don't have the luxury to do that, because boards of directors and owners, stockholders, they want a return right now.
And you look up and everybody's saying, well, your quarterly earnings have to reflect this or we will fire your ass. Guess what? You either quit or you step in line.
People get art and commerce mixed up. And once you can separate the two and see that art is art and commerce is commerce, and understand that this business is commerce, then it makes that much more sense.
Virtually all of the important music that lasts, that lingers, that sells those 10 million copies of albums is not formula music. It's crazy music. It's the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. It's the Beatles. It's Led Zeppelin. It's stuff that was out there.
Good music is timeless. Great music and great lyrics blow people's minds.
So a lot of times when you have something that is really new, you have to give people a while to catch up to it. Because if it's really new, the people won't like it, because they won't know what it is.
These are now largely only pop entertainers with little knowledge of politics or the society life beyond the superficial. But now largely pop culture and music in Hollywood is one of egotism that is indifferent to the suffering of half of the country. There are no longer voices for the suffering amongst us, and is not profitable in the short term and often exposes the owner class that owns the companies that employs them. You don't hear music like you did during the Depression or the Vietnam War. 2016 election, only a handful of celebrities spoke out against the right-wing Clintons trying once again to keep the Democratic Party from becoming a people's party. With a downturn economy, many were afraid to take sides in the 2016 primary for fear of financial loss. Even those who called themselves liberal would not speak out against the Clintons and even lied on her behalf.
That Harry Bernie stuff was crazy. That stuff was getting crazy. And they overlapped, like 90% of their policies overlap.
Oh, you idiot!
And they overlap, like 90% of their policies overlap.
Oh, you idiot!
And they overlap, like 90% of their policies overlap.
Oh, you idiot!
Some even supported her during the primary. Even though many celebrities still are politically and socially active abroad in poorer countries, in their home country, social and political change is now nearly stagnant, no longer propelled by well-known voices, and the few that do are demonized by the mainstream. Social democracy brought America out of the third world and into a middle-class society, and its demise returned it once again. Now half of the population cannot afford a $400 emergency.
While the poor people sleeping with the shade on the light, while the poor people sleeping, all the stars come out at night.